The Indianapolis Colts named Daniel Jones the starter, but a bigger story is the fact that Anthony Richardson is likely done in Indy.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On NFL. I am the host of the Barbershop, Tony Wiggins, joined today by David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. We're going to break it down, man. A lot of big stories around the National Football League. We're going to go through them one by one here today. But first, I'd like to tell you, you can get our podcast for free wherever you subscribe. Make sure you check into that location each and every day so you do not miss an episode of the show. Shout out to our everydayers that join us. And if you're here for the first time, we're going to give you a reason to come back. Dave and I are both experienced, credentialed members of the media. We give our own little perspective, and that's what we aim to do today. We're going to end the show talking about how Caleb and Ben looks good. I meant to say look, but they looks good. We're going to treat it like Ben and Jerry's ice cream. They are one thing, right? Together. Eagles and Trey. Trey who? Trey Hendrickson? I think they're a match. But the Eagles already made a trade. Can they make another one? Starting at the very, very top, though, Richardson, as in Anthony Richardson, is now a backup in Indy after 2 years of being named the starter. Dave, what do you think it means, man? I kind of think this is writing on the wall. This is a Justin Fields type writing on the wall, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. You know what I mean? I think that's what everybody pretty much assumes, that his days in Indianapolis are numbered. It's just a matter of the Colts figuring out, can you find a trade partner? Or are you just going to straight up release him? Or are you going to make him sit on the bench as a backup in case Daniel Jones gets injured or just does so poorly that you go ahead and flip-flop back to the other quarterback? But regardless, man, it's a bad situation for Anthony Richardson. It's a bad situation for the Indianapolis Colts. And truthfully, it's going to be one of those situations where personally, I'm going to blame the Colts. You went out and you drafted this 21-year-old quarterback, and everybody that was anybody that had any business evaluating the draft that year talked about how he was a project. He was going to need years, not a year. He was going to need years to really get to where you needed him to be an NFL quarterback. But he had so many intangibles and skills, and you could see the ceiling and all this stuff that's like, well, and he is a quarterback, so someone was going to spend a first-round draft pick on him. But originally it was like, okay, maybe back end of the first round, maybe someone trades in like they did with Lamar Jackson and gets him at the end of the first round, get that 5th year of the contract and all that stuff. And then, shortly after the Senior Bowl, I want to say it was, that's when the steam really started rolling, and Anthony Richardson suddenly was a top 10 prospect. I didn't really get it then. And of course I got called a hater and some other things, but it wasn't about hating. It was about understanding that what's more important, and every player in the NFL comes to learn this. And Anthony Richardson is learning this right now. What is important is where you get drafted to, not where you get drafted at or what pick you get drafted at, right? It doesn't matter if you go in the first round or the 7th round. If you go to the right situation, you're going to be successful. And the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, they put him out there for 4 games in his rookie season. And granted, a little bit of that was, oh, well, let's just see what we have right now. Let's just see where he is. Okay, but then the next year you come out there and there's all this pressure on him to basically elevate the franchise. And, oh, we got Jonathan Taylor, and we got these receivers. And now, and you put this kid in a position where he needed years to grow. And now it's, no, you don't have years to grow. Now it's either you get it figured out now or you're not going to get it figured out at all. Wig, this dude is 23 years old.
Yep.
Like, he just turned 23 years old. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm calling the Colts yesterday, and I'm saying, how low of a draft pick can I give you for this quarterback that you probably ruined, so we can bring him to Pittsburgh and tell him, listen, dude, there is no chance, zero opportunity for you to start in 2025. Like, that is just not going to be a thing. And that's not a bad thing. That's for his benefit. As far as like being a starter, like when the media talks to you, I always prepare as a starter. Got it. Check out of that mindset, because Aaron Rodgers is here. And if he goes down, we'll figure out something else. You're here to reset. I've kind of said this about Jameis Winston in the past. Unfortunately, it came too late for him. I don't know if it's too late for Anthony Richardson, but sometimes these prospects need to just be able to back up, take a step out of the spotlight, take a second out of the sauna, reset, go somewhere where they can figure out how to trust again. Because that's a big part of this too, Wig, is if he no longer trust the NFL or trust these NFL coaches, I mean, honestly, it might be done for him. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, that's all you're going to have is NFL coaches. But if he can still trust, and if there's a guy that can re-earn that trust, I think Mike Tomlin might be that guy. Then you can salvage Anthony Richardson potentially. So that's the situation he needs to go. Don't send him to Cleveland or one of these other, places that's just going to do the same thing to him that's already been done to him. But if he goes to the right place and gets the opportunity to reset, then potentially he can be salvaged.
No doubt about it. Listen to what my man or my guys from Locked On Colts had to say about this situation, and then we'll come back and I'll put the little icing on the cake for you.
Indianapolis Colts head coach Shane Steichen has named his starting quarterback, and it is none other than Daniel Jones. To not much fanfare, Jones has been named the starter for the 2025 season. Steichen said, he didn't want to comment on whether there's, a certain leash that Jones will have as to when he could get pulled. But he said he's very confident in this decision. He really pointed towards Jones' ability to connect with his teammates, make the correct checks at the line, his efficiency as a passer, his completion percentage, basically all the intangible things that, I guess separate him a little bit from Anthony Richardson is why he has been named the starter. Now, I think the vast majority of us can say that Richardson appeared to win the competition, at least the on-field portion of it. And, Steichen did acknowledge that Richardson made strides there. He's improved. He's gotten better than he was before, but he still has some room to grow. Whereas, Jones, he's very confident in the operation of the offense. And again,
listen, coaches, head coaches with quarterbacks are like basketball coaches are with point guards. They want you to be an extension of them. They want to be able to trust you. And I think that comes along with Daniel Jones being that type of player, as opposed to Anthony Richardson, where it is you expect the big plays aren't enough to carry you. It's the routine plays that you have to make every single time. And I got hate too, Dave, because I didn't think he'd be drafted on day one or day two. But when he was, I was called a Gator hater because I root for the Seminoles. And I don't do that. Okay. Yeah. I'm a fandom guy, but at the end of the day, when the dude leaves school, man, he's a human being and I try to root for him. And I was rooting for him because I know his quarterback coach. But the thing is, man, that position is more about trust. That position is sometimes the coach can sit back and they can watch who the team follows. And that is the quarterback of the team, regardless of what you see on the field on preseason.
Yeah, look, we go back to him taking himself out of a game. I think a lot of what's going on or what's gone on with Anthony Richardson is a lack of maturity. And the thing about, and if that's the case, right, and the thing about a lack of maturity is you can't force it. You got to teach it. You got to mold it. You got to grow it. You know what I mean? And look, it's a business. This is a grown man business. This is the professional level of football. So is there an extent where, the coach shouldn't be expected to kind of help raise you a little bit as a young man? Like potentially, you know what I mean? But the question as a coach is, do you want to get the most out of this guy or do you not want to get the most out of this guy? Because if you want to get the most out of him, any leader is going to tell you, right, what's the purpose of leadership is to provide purpose, direction, and motivation. Well, that motivation comes into that maturity. And you have to show him why it benefits him and the team, but him primarily to develop that maturity, to develop that mental strength, that resiliency, to understand what it is that your role is, understand what it is that's really being asked of you. And, again, I can't tell you that the Colts haven't done it. It just sounds a lot like, well, Daniel Jones comes in, looks the part a little bit better. Maybe he fits the business suit part of being a quarterback a little bit more than Anthony Richardson does. So instead of, teaching this young quarterback how to be the guy that we need him to be, we're going to go ahead and go to the guy that at least walks the walk, or I should say talks the talk, and then we'll see if he walks the walk when it comes to game day, right? But, with AR, man, it's just it's really upsetting because, and I saw somebody tweet this earlier, like, I don't know for sure this is what, we can't go back and change history, but it's like the whole NIL thing, right? Like if there's NIL for Anthony Richardson, does he come out of college at 21 years old? If he doesn't come out of college 21 years old, how much does he grow within the collegiate game where you can get away with just being a better athlete while you grow mentally and mature as a man and then come in the league at 23, maybe 24 years old? How much different is that? Because you look at Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels comes out of Arizona State as a 21-year-old into the NFL, he's not going to have any of the success that we've seen him have in his first year in the NFL.
Yep, no doubt. Baker Mayfield is somebody that went through exactly what we were saying Anthony Richardson has to go through in order to improve. We'll discuss that more here in a second on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and my fellows on the Playmakers and Showtime League on Yahoo, we're playing for the 18th straight year, and you should too. If it's your 50th year playing, making it your millionth time doing these drafts. All right, to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, and it's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's just one team left standing. With seasons being around the corner, one more week, now it's time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/locked-on. Moving to grooving with my man David Harrison here, talking about Anthony Richardson and the path that he has to take in order to get his NFL career back on track. We definitely wish him the absolute best. But the Colts, I believe, one of the caveats we have to have here is guys got to save their jobs too. And they always try to do that by winning as many games as they can, even if it doesn't mean the best for the long-term future of the team. That's why Baker Mayfield jumped around until he actually found a team that he could get to. Lots of success last year. Everyone is now saying, can this guy beat Baker Mayfield? They even talked about Sam Darnold like that last year. But Baker's team has some injuries, man. I've been loving on them for a minute, but now they're starting to get a little banged up. Listen to the guys right now from Locked On Bucks.
I mean, we were impressed when Godwin came in from Penn State and the way he carried himself, the way he went about his business. Like, this guy looks like he is going to be the real deal. Emeka Egbuka looks like he's even ahead of Godwin as a rookie. When you talk to him, when you watch him, you see how strong his legs are. You see the footwork. You see how precise he is with his routes. He's all about business. The way he goes up, high points it, way he gets it away from his hands. It really is impressive. And then you listen to Baker Mayfield, and he says, flat out stud.
All right, so that's about Emeka Egbuka. The reason why that is significant in terms of injuries is because Jalen McMillan has some sort of back or upper body injury that looks like it's going to cost him about half the season. When they drafted Egbuka, I was like, luxury pick. They got two bona fide superstar types at receiver. They got this young kid that came up last year and came on late in the year, and you saw it against Washington in the playoffs, but now he's out. So this is why. This is the trophy reason why you draft the best player available, especially when you're picking late in the first round.
Yeah, look, I actually watched a recent video from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, media team on, their draft recap and everything else. And they just felt like Emeka Egbuka was just so good that you can't go and pass up a talent like that, even in the first round, even with the defensive-minded head coach and Todd Bowles. And I thought it was very, very interesting. One of their staff members, during the process said they have, three things that they kind of stack everything. They have what they need, what they want, and what they like to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always have this saying. I learned this saying from a GM a long time ago. But you have to make decisions based off of what you know, not what you think or what you hope. And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, bring Chris Godwin back. You hope that he's going to come back from that ankle injury that he suffered last year, and he's going to be fine and even get up to speed this year. You hope that Jalen McMillan is going to continue to ascend as a young receiver. But remember, it was 1 year, right? Like it was a really good year. Don't get me wrong, but it was still 1 year. And then you hope Mike Evans isn't going to fall off a cliff as he gets older. But you don't know any of those things are actually going to happen, right? So when you see Emeka Egbuka sitting there and you look at your wide receiver room and you have a whole lot of hopes and not a whole lot of things that you go out there and you do it. And yeah, everybody that's anybody is scratching their head. I mean, Tampa media was scratching their head when the Buccaneers drafted a wide receiver in the first round. But guess what? Chris Godwin is still going through his recovery. He's not fully back yet. Mike Evans is a year older, so we'll see how that catches up to him, or if it catches up with him yet. I hope not, because I wanted to see him break Jerry Rice's record. I love Jerry Rice, but I also love Mike Evans, so I want to see Mike Evans break that record. And then, yeah, now you have the situation, not saying that, Jason Light is in the draft room, predicting that Jalen McMillan is going to have a severe neck sprain, in the preseason, or strain in the preseason, but this is why you draft talented players, and you don't just sit there and say, well, we think this, we think that, we think that. So again, it's kudos to Jason Light. Unfortunate for Jalen McMillan, because that kid is incredibly talented, man. But if he can stay healthy, or if he can get healthy and then find a way to stay healthy after that, hopefully no long-term damage to his neck, then he'll be able to come back. And yeah, eventually the Buccaneers, when Mike Evans rides off into the sunset, it'll be Chris Godwin, Egbuka, McMillan, and then Jason Light in his 30th year as the GM of the Buccaneers will draft some young receiver down the line. People scratch their heads, but then next thing you know, they're going to need him. So yeah, it's why you draft the way that you do.
Yep. Washington and Cincinnati have guys on the trade block, and the Eagles made a trade. Wasn't for neither one of them, but we're going to talk about one of them. Let's see what the Eagles up to.
All right, so the Philadelphia Eagles just traded for John Metchie, a former wide receiver out of Alabama, second-round pick to the Houston Texans. They got John Metchie and a sixth-round pick for Harrison Bryant, the tight end, and a fifth-rounder. The picks are actually just going back to the other team that was in the trade for C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Kenyon Green. So the Eagles get their sixth back, and the Texans get their fifth-rounder back. In a vacuum, I think John Metchie for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which is basically what the trade was, because Kenyon Green's probably going to get cut. Not ideal, but Metchie is a clear and obvious upgrade at wide receiver, and now I think you have 5 guys locked in. It's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson, and John Metchie. I think.
All right, so the Eagles made a trade, but it wasn't the one we thought. That one kind of caught me by surprise, but if Metchie can get back to what he was before his illness kicked in. Of course, he beat cancer. Shout out to him, man. He can really, really help Philadelphia as a guy who understands his role. But here's the bigger question. Do you think they need to trade for Trey Hendrickson? Now, I know you might be a little bit of, no, we need to trade. Washington needs to trade for Trey Hendrickson. But no, man, but really, do they have the ammunition? And because of the way they are built, do you think that's something they can do, or do they need to keep trusting their draft picks on the defensive side of the ball?
I mean, they have the ammunition. The question is, do they have the guts, I guess, to go out there and do it, right? We've talked about the Eagles, a lot on this show, and they're a team that they pay their offense, they draft their defense. Well, this would be a situation. I know they just paid one of their linebackers, and, you'll pay occasional players here and there. But by and large, they like to kind of rotate their defensive players out, and that's exactly what happened this offseason. They lost a lot of important defensive players. So the question is, how well are they going to be able to kind of shore up those holes that they just opened up, in free agency? And certainly trading for Trey Hendrickson would help do that. Wig, I mean, honestly, man, I think the conflict I have with whether or not the Eagles should do it. I mean, listen, if you're an NFL team and you don't have the reigning sack leader, you should go trade for Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the only team that, so that's 31 teams. Like all 31 teams should be interested in trading for Trey Hendrickson. The conflict that there's going to be with every single team is the same conflict that Trey Hendrickson is having with the Cincinnati Bengals. Who is going to pay you north of $30 million a year with guarantees spread over multiple years, high guarantees, not just a little bit of guarantees, high guarantees? Because the team that knows you, the team that loves you, the team that's had 17 and a half sacks from you for the last 2 years doesn't want to guarantee, or according to reports, doesn't want to guarantee any of your money past this year. They want to give you 1 year of guaranteed money and nothing else after that guaranteed, because you're old. You're football old. You're not human old. You're football old. And that's just the unfortunate truth of the matter. So Trey Hendrickson has the option of taking a deal where there's a little bit less security in the future, or you go year to year, and we've seen guys do that as well. Just start going 1 year contracts until you decide to hang it up and go out there and be a mercenary. The Philadelphia Eagles are known for being cheap. Like, I don't think that's really the big conflict. Is I don't see Howie Roseman suddenly changing his stripes and saying, okay, we'll give Trey Hendrickson a 3-year extension with 2 years of guaranteed money, or 2.5 years of guaranteed money, or whatever it is. That's basically what you're asking for. So, can it happen? Sure. Should it happen? I mean, like I said, if you're not the team that has him on the roster already, then yeah, you should be interested in him. I just don't think it fits their MO.
I wonder if he'd take a deal from another team that he wouldn't take from the Bengals if that team
And a
looks
lot
like
of
they
times
got a
doesn't do
chance
that.
to win the contender. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's what he might end up doing. I tell you what, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are tied at the hip, so they're not individual. They're a show. The Ben and Caleb show. So far, it looks good. My man Dave gonna kill me about that S being on that look, but we're gonna hit that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored, brought to you by Game Time. Listen, man, Game Time is the absolute truth. If you've ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. I do that all the time here with our baseball team. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. The money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you and chill. That's right. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. One day, I'm going to get up the nerve to go to the Bronx and check out the Red Sox and the Yankees. I am definitely going to do that. So I'll take the guesswork out of buying my tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. It's all guaranteed. All right, moving along here on Locked On NFL here in the barbershop with my man David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. Talking about some of these teams, man, that I've seen and that have looked good. A lot of questions about Ben Johnson as a head coach. A lot of questions about Caleb Williams. Even more questions about them together. They looked pretty good the other night when we watched them on TV. They dismantled somebody on TV, and they looked really, really good on TV. But you would think Ben Johnson would carry that, just let everybody rest and carry that into the regular season. He says, no, we're going to do it again. We're going to play again. See, this is what I like, that vulnerability and that toughness is saying we ain't going to just rest on our laurels. We're going to let our guys play. But I want you to hear my man Lauren Cox talk about Caleb Williams and the performance of the Chicago Bears.
But the things about this starting offensive performance that I was so encouraged by is just how structured and in rhythm Caleb and the offense looked. They came out passing fast and furious, and I think that was pretty intentional by Ben Johnson. I think it was 3 straight passing plays before their first run had a holding penalty. They very clearly wanted to come out throwing and get the passing game into a rhythm, and that happened very quickly when it comes to, like, timing.
Listen, man, I said the same thing about Trevor Lawrence's performance the other night, where he was 8 out of 10 for 76 yards and a touchdown. I said the offense actually looked like it had a why, a reason, a purpose. And that's the same thing you can say about the Bears.
Yeah, look, Ben Johnson, my biggest question about him becoming an NFL head coach had nothing to do with X's and O's or football smarts. It had everything to do with leadership of a group of men. And, that's definitely a good start. You love to see it if you're a Chicago Bears fan, if you're a Caleb Williams fan, and all those things. We'll see how well it translates into the season. The question always is going to be when turmoil hits, that's when the rubber meets the road, right? Everybody can get along when it's new and it's fresh and we're building and we're excited and we're hand in hand and we're doing all this stuff and we're going 38-0 against the Buffalo Bills who are competing for a Super Bowl. So now we're going to do this thing. Like, all right, it's preseason. I mean, Ben even himself admitted he dusted off some preseason game plan that he used like 4 years ago and just pulled out and said, here's what we're going to go do. Now, kudos to the players for executing that old dusted off game plan to perfection. Kudos to the coaches for communicating it, teaching it, running it, coordinating it. All those things certainly shouldn't take too much away from it. But just like everything else in preseason, bad or positive, everybody needs to just chill. This thing will get figured out one way or the other. We'll see how it comes out in the wash.
Yeah, everybody needs to chill except maybe the Jets, because I saw Justin Fields throwing footballs at people's feet. We talked about Anthony Richardson, and we're at the point now where I don't know where you can get a quarterback except one place, a place that actually looks like they don't have one, but they did name a starter. Listen to Spencer German from Locked On Browns.
The worst kept secret in Cleveland is now public. Joe Flacco, your starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, in 2025, week 1. He'll be under center. Team announced it today. I thought we'd get it tomorrow when we get a chance to see the team again and Kevin Stefanski had finally talked to the team. But they didn't wait. They told the team, he told the team, and he made it public as soon as he could via the team's website and all that good stuff. So, listen, this isn't a surprise. I've been talking like this really over the last week or so. I thought he really cemented the job down in Philly, especially that second day of joint practices. And so we're off and running with Joe Flacco as the week 1 starter for the Cleveland Browns. What gets interesting from here in the final week of preseason and training camp is how the rest of the guys fall in order in that depth chart behind Joe Flacco and whether or not they'll keep 4 quarterbacks. We'll talk about the quarterback situation once again tomorrow on the Locked On Browns podcast.
I'm not going to bring up Kirk Cousins for the Jets because he's 91 years old and he costs a lot of money. I will ask you this question. With the poise and outside of the speeding ticket, the way Shedeur Sanders has conducted himself, is that enough for Aaron Glenn and all of the decision makers in New York and say, look, we passed up this dude knowing we needed a quarterback, but he does look pretty good and he could probably function your offense behind your offensive line that you spend a lot of capital on with those running backs that you plan to use. What harm could it be to call Cleveland and say, we'll give you your 5th round pick back. Can you send us Shedeur? Give me your assessment of that one.
I mean, look, Shedeur, I don't think the question was ever the on-field stuff, you know what I mean? But even that, like the on-field stuff, like to me, it was back end of day 2. It was never a day 1 anyway. And I know that, the stat line looked pretty good the other day in the preseason, all that stuff, but you still look at it as a game and some of the mechanics are off. He sails passes that he shouldn't be sailing. The arm length or the arm motion is slow. The anticipation isn't always there. The timing is off from time to time. And those things are going to get you killed in the National Football League. When the pressure gets ramped up, those things don't typically get better. They only get worse, right? So if you're the New York Jets, honestly, if you put Justin Fields and Shedeur Sanders in the same room right now, to me, that's a prime. You have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks type of situation. I think if you're the New York Jets, you made the decision you made for a reason. Whatever that reason was inside your 4 walls, you made that reason during draft weekend. I would say stick to it. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't make that move. Stick with it. See what happens with Justin. If it doesn't work out well, if you're Aaron Glenn, you just hope that the Jets do better by you than they did by some of their other coaches. And as long as your program is working in the right direction, then, see who's available next year in the draft or in free agency. Go on from there. I don't know. Maybe go get Anthony Richardson, see what happens there.
That's just like having a dude you already got, in my opinion. But one thing I will tell you is this. Ain't no security going to be tapping Aaron Glenn on the shoulder saying, come on, we need you to get your stuff and come on out of here. I think the result will be a little bit different than it was with Robert Saleh. All right, man, if you want something different to happen with your fantasy league, man, you need to watch Locked On Fantasy Football, the podcast that is hosted right here on our network by Vinny Ira and Michelle Majuk. Listen every day to prep your fantasy draft and become the informed manager so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Find my man David Harrison, Locked On Commanders, each and every day. If y'all knew what that dude went through to make sure he was at practice and got home and the nice greasy spoon restaurants he had to pass because he's on his diet kick, man, y'all would tap in every single day and really, really appreciate him. And then you can catch me and Tyler rolling over here on Locked On NFL. Also, we appreciate you spending almost 29 minutes with us today. Your time is extremely valuable, and we value you spending that time with us. Until next time, I'm Tony Wiggins and David Harrison for David Harrison. We'll see you later.